Howdy and welcome to Bamberger Ranch. My name is Aldo Leopold. I'm the director of the Texas A&M Natural Resources Institute, and we're going to continue our Leopold Live series here at Bamberger, continuing to talk about the 5 basic tools introduced by Aldo Leopold, the father of wildlife management. These 5 tools include cow, axe, plow, fire, and gun. And what we hope to do in the upcoming months is show you how those tools can be applied, but with very specific projects and objectives. And so with me is Dr. April Sampson. She's the executive director of Bamberger, and she's going to tell us a little bit about Bamberger and what we hope to cover in the series.
Great. Thank you so much, Roel. We're really excited to have you and your colleagues from the Natural Resources Institute back here at Selah Bamberger Ranch Preserve. And we're excited about continuing our journey into Leopold Live version 2. Like Roel said, we'll be providing more detail and more useful information regarding the 5 tools that Aldo Leopold championed. Here at Selah Bamberger Ranch Preserve, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our mission is landowner stewardship, outreach, and environmental education. So we have many Central Texas school children that come visit us every year for hands-on science-based environmental education lessons, and we also lead showcase tours and workshops for landowners interested in practicing restoration and good land stewardship. So we're very happy to be partnering with Natural Resources Institute, and we know that you'll benefit a lot from the information that we are going to be talking about during this new version of Leopold Live.
So let's go ahead and get started.
Great.
Hi, I'm Cindy Luongo Cassidy. This is Philip Walker. We're both here representing DarkSky Texas, which is a nonprofit that is the Texas chapter of DarkSky International, the internationally known, I should say, agency that is the top group to find out about how to reduce light pollution. So we're here at Bamberger Ranch, which is a fabulous location.
Yes, it is. Been here many times. I think you've been here a couple times too.
I have. And this will be a great place for us to see some stars later in the night, especially since the moon isn't going to come up until about 11:30 tonight. So it'll give us a great opportunity. And one of the reasons that we'll be able to see the stars here is because of the good lighting. So I don't know whether you can see any of the lights, but we will be showing them to you later in the program. All of the lights here are ones that are needed. They're useful. They help you see the path where you're walking. They have a very specific use.
Or they're covered, shielded.
Yes, they're shielded and have the light directed where you need it instead of all over the place.
Or in some of them are just, they're lower light to where they're not wasting energy and producing that glare.
Right. So they're more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that most of them are a warmer color, and that's something that is much better for all of the living things out there, for our environment, and for us. we're part of that.
Yep.
So you want the warm colors, and they've got them. The other thing
is that some of them are even controlled to where they only come on with motion detectors and sensors, so that the natural darkness is there unless they need to be turned on.
Right. Or you can have a switch on them.
So, yeah, absolutely.
On some, so timers, motion detectors, switches. You want to control those lights.
Yes. To only be on when you need them on.
Exactly. So
Saves energy.
You're right. So here we are. And the first thing we want to talk about, we mentioned seeing the stars later, but I want you all to think about a time that you have been under a beautiful night sky when you've seen stars. Now maybe you live in an urban area and you haven't seen many, but even being out in the night air and seeing some stars, it usually has a physiological effect on the body and helps you relax so that you take this big deep breath, and it's so healthy for you to do that. There are a lot of other ways that humans have connected with the night sky through the years. Think about people sitting around campfires.
Absolutely. Some of the greatest memories a lot of people have is sitting out under the stars, if you ask them. But it's just embedded in our culture since humans, the beginning of time. Like it's in our songs, it's
Right.
in our art, it's in our literature. I mean,
Exactly. And even our science, so much of that was developed by measuring the stars and the movement of them. They could start to calculate time. That was so important for an agricultural economy, for religious rites, know when to celebrate those. It was just key to many of the early humans. And we've lost some of that connection. So that's something we want to remember, that human connection to the night sky.
that is so true. And the great thing about, if there's anything great about light pollution, is that it's the easiest form of pollution to correct.
You're right. You're right. Absolutely. So, moving on from humans.
Moving on from humans, we're going to talk about how it affects wildlife and animals in the outdoors.
Exactly. So, some of the different ways that it affects animals, one that we're going to talk about first is navigation. And you think, okay, animals are navigating? Absolutely. They're moving around all over the place.
Sea turtles.
You're right. Almost everybody's heard about the problems with sea turtles. One of the newest pieces of research on the sea turtles, you know, we used to think, oh, okay, if there was a light over here on a condo or a street light there, we could shield it, we could put up the true amber lights and it wouldn't affect them so much. What we have learned recently is that just the sky glow can disorient the baby sea turtles when they, you know, pop out of their nest, they hatch, and they're supposed to be going to the sea. And you think, okay, so if they walk around a little bit, what does that hurt? That sets them up for predators to find them. They really need to go directly to the sea to do
Because
that.
they could wander off into parking lots to nearby hotels. But Cindy, really quickly, what is sky glow?
Sky glow is that sometimes, you know, light coloring in the sky that's from artificial light. Sometimes I used to think of it as an orange or yellow glow, but as we're changing into whiter lights for our street lights, etc., sometimes what we get is it's a just, you know, kind of a whitish sky instead of that naturally dark sky.
Okay, so like when we're camping out in far west Texas and we can see on the horizon, and even further than that, this white glow,
Exactly.
that's probably from Austin or San Antonio because we're looking towards the east, and that's the sky glow from the city, right?
Exactly. And if you're closer to those cities, it may take up your whole sky.
To where you can't see hardly any stars at all.
Right. Even if there are no lights within your direct line of sight, if there's, you know, if the sky is light instead of being naturally dark, then that's sky glow.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Now, here's one that most people haven't heard about. Dung beetles.
Oh, yes. how could I
Dung
forget?
beetles navigate during the day using the sun, but at night they use the Milky Way. And you think, okay, so what's this so important about dung beetles finding their way, you know, wherever they're going? Well, if they've been out making their little dung ball, they need to go as expeditiously as possible, straight back to their home, because other dung beetles will hijack their dung balls and take them away from them. So, plus they need to find their home, and they need the Milky Way to do that. So navigation.
Disorients them completely, like a lot of living species. But yes, the dung beetles and the turtles, and what else?
Well, we can't forget birds. I mean, here we are during migration season, and we think about all the birds migrating, especially over Texas. Well, that's not the only time that birds need, to have the lights turned on. But you may have heard of the Lights Out Texas program. Sometimes some of the counties or cities have a real strong program within that city, but we all work with the Lights Out Texas program, which actually came from some other programs elsewhere in the U.S. and Canada. But we've got this Lights Out program that says turn out your unnecessary lights between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. But what I want you to know, because I know if you're watching this, you are probably conservation minded. And in that case, you should know that the birds actually start migrating about 30 minutes after dusk. So why do we wait until 11 p.m. for lights out? That's because we want to educate more people. We want to get a lot of businesses to buy into the program and shut their lights out, put shades over their windows, or cut the lights out in the buildings. We want them to do that. And to get their buy-in and to start to educate them about this, we start it at 11 p.m. That's the only reason we do. As a conservation-minded person, not only would you want to have your lights under control as soon as it starts getting dark, but you can do it all year round. You can have lighting that is what we call nature, neighbor, and night sky friendly all year round, and you can have all the light you need to see without causing as many issues for all of our living things around us.
Yes, and it's real simple because all living things need natural darkness. It's simple as that.
Exactly. Exactly. So that kind of wraps up our navigational issues.
Yes, and there's others coming.
Well, what other issue would you like to talk about?
Well, there's many, but one of them that's pretty important is reproductive issues. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. First one I want to talk about is frogs. I love frogs.
Yes.
And, you know, let's think about what they do at dusk and early evening.
Ribbit.
They're out there. Absolutely. They're out there. They're calling each other. They may be doing some foraging for food, but they have all these life processes that they do at night. Well, if big lights are turned on nearby, they just shut down. Shut down. And you think, okay, well, hopefully people will turn their lights off by, you know, a certain time in the evening. The problem is, once they do, they act like it's dusk again, and they wait another 2 to 3 hours before they really crank up full rivet, I should say, and get going. So what we've done is compress the amount of time that they can actually live out the processes they should be doing at night. So we have issues there.
It affects their eating. It affects their entire balance of
everything. So the other animal that I love that I wanted to mention.
I bet I know what it is.
Oh, you want to guess?
Fireflies?
Yeah.
Where have all the fireflies gone, Cindy?
Well, the problem with, one of the main problems with our loss of fireflies is that our artificial lights. But what we have in North America alone is over 150 different species of fireflies.
I had no idea.
And every one of them has a different blink. Think about that.
So they have to find another firefly species that's the same as theirs that blinks the same?
Right. For them to form a family, they've got to find one. And if our lights are so bright or we've got too much sky glow, whatever, they can't see each other. So they don't find each other and form families, and that's why we are losing fireflies. We have, you know, just a dropping number of fireflies all the time.
You just don't see them like you used to. So yeah, with all the
Yeah.
increased development and the lack of education on lighting, it has a massive effect. Just another example.
Exactly,
So you
exactly.
got the fireflies, and we talked about the frogs, and then
Well,
you've got
Well, let's look at plants. Plants need pollination to reproduce.
yes.
Okay, so what's pollinating them? All these moths are one of the huge pollinators. Our bats, we've got lots more pollinators after dark than we do during the daytime.
I would have never guessed that. More pollination happens at night.
Yes.
Versus in the day when we always see the bees and the butterflies and everything, but you're saying at night. Okay.
Right, so we've got all this pollination going on at night, and if we don't control our outdoor lighting, then all of these insects are not finding the, you know, all the blooms, etc. What they're finding, not the insects finding, what the scientists are finding is that if the plants are in an area with artificial light, that there are fewer insects around them to pollinate, and each insect has less pollen than the ones that would have been in a comparable area in the dark.
Dark area.
Right. So we've got this cumulative effect with the, you know, abundance of insects going down, with the abundance of pollen going down, and it's just having a devastating effect on pollination for plants.
So the light pollution affects these plants. They don't open up properly because they maybe think it's daytime.
Well, some of them bloom 24 hours a day, but some of them, you're right, are night bloomers. And if it's not dark enough, they won't bloom, or maybe just a few of the blooms bloom. So you don't have as many at all. So you don't have as much food for the pollinators.
Fascinating.
Yeah, crazy. But we've got, you know, one of our big pollinators is moths. Well, think about the moths around a light that may have, I'll say accidentally, been left on, maybe a porch light left on. What do you find?
Well, when we were growing up, and oftentimes when we're out in the country with family and friends, and we have a white light on, we don't have white lights anymore.
Right.
But when we did, we didn't understand light pollution growing up. We put in the big bright, and there was always moths spinning on the floor, getting in your hair. And
yes.
they were all over the place. So
Yes.
that's because of.
They are drawn to that light, and you know, the scientists have explained exactly why they go around and around, but that's a detail about their navigation. But they stay there. They get stuck, so they are not out competing with other moths. They are not out getting food. They're not out finding a good place to live or making a family, and they're stuck there. Then what comes when what's attracted to them?
The predators.
Exactly. So you've got, you know, lizards, frogs, etc., attracted to them, and then, you know, they're not out doing what they should be doing
Right.
either.
So
They're all drawn to this light. They have shown that in some cases, when some particular insects are attracted to a particular, say, wavelength of light, and they've had that in all the street lights, that it's just decimated the population of some particular insect species around those lights.
That's amazing. Well, we have since, like many people we know now, have replaced those glaring white bright lights that are just emanating everywhere, even our neighbors. And we've got these wonderful bug lights. You can get them at most stores. We got ours at Home Depot.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And so they're not attracted to these bug lights, these amber colors, which I'm sure we'll talk about again. But it's all about colors as well.
Right. And that leads us right into talking about our circadian rhythm, because our circadian rhythm is reset every day at dusk. Especially if we're out in natural light, it gets reset every day at dusk. And one of the things that affects us most is what we call a blue light, or light in the blue wavelength. And we need that blue light
in the day.
Right. And we get a lot of it from our natural sunshine in the morning. That's what wakes us up. It gives us, you know, it says time to go, let's do things. But this time of day, like we've got now at dusk, it starts to trigger us to produce melatonin, as long as we're not around the artificial lights. Now, any artificial light will reduce our production of melatonin, but light in the blue wavelength is especially efficient at doing that.
So what exactly is this blue light on the spectrum?
Well, have you ever seen a prism and had light coming through it? On the other side, it looks like a rainbow. And I think we have a picture that can be put up of that. But all those different colors are different spectrum of light.
Yes.
And the blue wavelength is that blue streak. It's the light that actually makes our lights look really white to us. So visually to us, it looks very white. So heavy light that's heavy in the blue wavelength would be things like from our phones, from our TVs, from some of these street lights that some cities are putting
and
in.
even new car lights.
Yes, are very bright white, high, what we call it, it's a high Kelvin temperature that says that it has a lot of light in that blue wavelength. And that's the most efficient light at shutting down our melatonin. So we do not want to be around that at night.
Not at night. So, and I've even heard that if you go downstairs in the middle of the night maybe and you open up your fridge,
Yes.
what happens then?
Takes about 3 seconds to shut down your production of melatonin. 3 seconds. So you have to be really fast. No, don't.
Yeah.
Don't do that. It will shut down your melatonin production. You think, okay, then I'll shut it. You know, I'll have my little snack and go back to bed. But what happens is that, yes, you can start to produce melatonin again, but it goes back down to 0, and it never gets time to build up the level of production that you were making before you opened that refrigerator or turned on that bathroom light, that type of thing. Now, if you need to turn on a light, have a couple of bug lights in
Even
strategic places so that you can turn that on. It will keep you from, it'll let you continue to make melatonin. Now, melatonin, when it's in your blood at night, at the level it should be during natural darkness, it will stop many breast cancer cells from proliferating. They will stop growing during that period of time. Yes, they start again the next morning,
But
you will have slowed it down. And you stop it every night, it gives your body a chance to fight it better.
all living things need natural darkness.
Exactly, exactly. So we've been talking about these daily cycles.
Yes.
I'd like to mention here that, I mean, you know, we're doing Leopold Live. I want to talk about Aldo Leopold's observations. And when you think about his observations, he was looking at daily cycles, seasonal cycles, yearly cycles, and what the behaviors were of the living things around him. He didn't have to deal with light pollution changing those cycles. I love what he said about the woodcocks, where he talked about their activities at dusk and again at dawn. So they're crepuscular. That means they were active, you know, right after the sun sets and right before the sun rises. So he's got this daily cycle with them of their behaviors at that time of day. But what would happen if there had been big street lights near him and they thought that, oh, it's still dusk all night or it's still daylight. I'm not going into my normal behavior. In fact, scientists have found that there are birds that do not go into their normal behaviors when there is a lot of artificial light around them.
What about yearly cycles on things and how it affects?
Well, absolutely. We've got these yearly cycles, and we're talking about, you know, the daily, seasonal, yearly, you know, the annual cycles. Those are triggered by as little as the number of minutes of daylight in one day and the number of minutes in darkness, you know, that day.
Like deer?
Deer, exactly. So it triggers hormones in them for them to do the things that they do throughout the year. You know,
Like the
you
rut
think about
season when they start growing the antlers, the minutes of the amount of daylight.
right, amount of
that
daylight
day.
and darkness tells them to do those things. We can think about, oh yeah, all sorts of other animals. Think about the trees, you know, because we don't want to leave off the plants in this. The trees, we think about them turning colors in the fall. They actually start that process just after the summer solstice.
Right.
The chemical process starts then. We might not see it until fall, but that chemical process has started then. And, you know, so we have so much going on. If you've got a tree that's under a street light,
then it doesn't start to change properly?
no, it thinks it's still
Colors,
summer.
Because of all the light.
So, you know, and you think, okay, so it didn't change colors. The issue there is that it needs to go through that process and drop its leaves, etc., to be healthy.
Right.
So we set those plants up, any plants that we have invaded with artificial light, we set them up for disease. They are much more likely
They don't get
to have
the rest
disease.
they need, just like the other living things we discussed.
Right. Or if you're a gardener, you're going to have a lot more slugs if you have artificial light out in the yard. Whoops.
Explains a few things.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
Plants, and what else do we have to discuss?
Well,
There's
let's
just
think
so
about
much, but
competition.
From a standpoint of
Competitions,
species competing.
right? Or competition, within a species or species to species.
Okay.
If you have a lot of artificial light, think about what happens when the moon is full.
Okay, so when the moon is full, then the animals or the insects maybe don't come out as much because they're more visible.
Exactly. Exactly. So their prey can see them better. So they hide while that, the moon's full. We were actually sitting out the other night with that gorgeous full moon, and it was so quiet. You could normally
There
hear.
weren't as many things out.
No, you can normally hear things, but they were out there just as quiet as could be. So we reduced the amount we changed the balance between the predator and the prey totally.
Right, because when there's more lights out, that affects the animals from being out as much because it's kind of mimicking the moon in some ways.
In some ways, although it's
But-
not the same wavelengths, but the amount of light can mimic the moon.
Okay.
Now
So that affects behavior.
there are a couple of species that have taken advantage of our lights.
Crows, maybe?
Crows, yeah. Those species that have taken advantage of our lights are generally ones that are not having issues at all. You mentioned crows. Crows in an urban area may group together to find their food, etc. And they'll leave a few of them in place because there's all this light so they can watch for predators. So they'll have, like their guard duties and be watching. And so they use that light. The other critter that we have seen to use the light are spiders.
Spiders make the webs near the lights.
Underneath the lights,
bugs,
so that the insects come and get caught in their webs, and they have a spider smorgasbord right
Yes.
there.
Oh boy, they got everything they need under the light right there.
Exactly.
On our back porch.
Exactly.
Yeah, anything
Yeah.
else, Cindy,
Well,
on
the
that?
other thing that I would want to touch on is general habitat destruction.
Oh.
And we've learned that in order to protect the land or the water, we've got to protect the living things in it. And I'll give an example of the glossy snake. It was like the most prevalent reptile in Southern California for years and years. But with all the development, some of the researchers and scientists were worried about them. But they thought, okay, we've got this huge reserve that is good habitat for them. Well, they started disappearing from most of that habitat. They finally realized that they were in one corner of that habitat that was protected by two big mountains to keep the sky glow and light pollution away from them. So, we look at that and as one example of the fact that if we're really going to protect the land or the water, we must protect it from light pollution. We know what it looks like to destroy habitat with a bulldozer. We don't think about what it looks like to destroy it with artificial light, with our man-made lights.
So these snakes, in essence, they had a refuge, like a lot of refuges around the world when people
Right.
think they're doing the right thing, but they're
Exactly.
only thinking about daylight and they're only thinking about the actual land, and they are not incorporating into their conservation plan lighting.
Exactly.
So it may not have the effect that they want it to
Right.
in the instance of this snake in California.
Right. So I would like to have everyone watching and all of us think about what we can do with our lighting. Think about that. What can we do with our lighting to change it so that we can have the light we need to see, but we aren't encroaching on the areas where other living things need to be? So we'll think about that. Before we finish today, we're going to talk about how to deal with this and some other things. But right now, think about that a minute.
Well, Cindy, we've learned so much already. But what are some other problems or issues with artificial lighting?
Well, we've talked about the ones for most of the living things. Let's talk about ones that humans may have with artificial lights.
Okay.
For instance, we're going to talk about glare, safety, and security, because people are very concerned about their security, and we need to show them that by using the types of lighting that we're going to talk about and recommend, that they can actually see better. And you know, if you can see better, you're actually safer.
Yes, because that security issue does come up a lot in my experience.
Exactly, mine too. And you know, we'll talk about security. Unfortunately, many of the lighting manufacturers have convinced people that they need a security light on even when nobody's out there. And in actuality, there have been professional studies that have shown that that does not deter crime, that in fact it may attract crime, because they can see, oh, there's good stuff over there, let's go over there and rob it. And they don't even have to take their own flashlight, so nobody notices that they're there. It's like, oh yeah, those lights are on all the time.
Well, and also to that point is that also when you've got these controlled lights that are triggered by motion, if the lights are on all the time, people get used to it. Even if there's people coming in and out of that lit area, it doesn't really get their attention.
Right.
But when that light comes on all of a sudden when it's always been dark, doesn't that tend to get people's attention?
It does, and I've heard, for instance, college security guards talk about how they love it to have a basically dark campus, except in the areas where people are actually out there. And they'll have motion detectors that show if somebody goes to an area, then those lights come on, and from way across campus they may go, something's going on over there, let's go check. Otherwise they would have no idea what was going on. And they've been, you know, very pleased when they've done that type of work there.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And isn't there a lot of energy wasted from all these lights that are just they're too powerful of a light in the bulb, they're wasting energy?
Exactly. And we'll get to that. Let's do an example here, because we've got this little demo for people where we'll just turn this one light on first. And this looks like a light that you may have seen on a lot of porches, you know, by the doors. And you put that light on. Exactly. What happens is that there's a lot of glare. And when you have glare, the human eye will adjust to the brightest thing around. So what you see is that bright object and a few things around it. Yes, you can see, you know, the tabletop here real well, but if it were dark around us, it would make everything beyond that look even darker. So what will actually happen is that if we can put in a light that is half the wattage or half the number of lumens, because that's the thing you need to look at now. How much light? Half the amount of light into this one. Now I'll let you turn that one on and I'll turn this one off. There we go. Whew. That's easier on our eyes. We can see beyond the light. And if we put a light meter under here, you'd be able to see that we have the same amount of light on the table here with a bulb that is half the amount of wattage that this one is. Think about that.
So you're saving energy, but also you're creating
And money.
not being blinded
Right.
by this brighter light, because I'm sure your pupil, it dilates when it looks at a bright light like that, but then you look away, you're not prepared. You're kind of temporarily blinded because you
are
this glaring light.
You are. So even if you put this bulb in there and had the reduced amount of light, a lot of that light won't get to what we call the target area. It will go up, down, around to the side and is wasted. So you want it so that the light directs, the fixture directs the light
where you really want to light up,
where you need it,
so
that you can see better. That's why we're putting up lights. We want to see better.
Exactly.
So that's kind of a multi-purpose little demo there for you that can get us through glare, safety, and security, because when you put up a light that's shielded like that, you actually can see better, and we know when we see better, we're safer. One of the things we haven't touched on is light trespass.
Oh yeah.
Are you familiar with light
It's
trespass?
becoming more and more common, but only until recently. But it makes sense.
It does.
Makes perfect sense.
It does. So if you can see a light that's on another property, if you can see the source of the light, then that light is, they're paying for it to come and hit your eye, right? If you can see the source, bam, it's paying, that light is coming all the way to you. So they're wasting money and energy, but they're also trespassing onto that other property. So all of us should look at our properties from other properties. Just, go around where we can, look back at our property when the lights are on and say, ooh, I can see the source of that light. I need to maybe adjust it, maybe put up a little bit different fixture, maybe put a shield on it, whatever you need to do so that that light stays on your property and doesn't go up into our common view of the sky, nor does it go over to a neighbor.
Right, and it's controlled, and it's hopefully got maybe a more mellow color.
Yeah.
And it doesn't waste energy.
Right.
And
So you're getting to all of our solutions. Absolutely.
And I've got a neighbor right now who came over to our house, and nice neighbors we have, and he was complaining about the neighbor on the other side of him.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I got to see this. Because he was saying, these are like stadium football lights. I'm like, no, they can't be that bright. And I went over to his backyard, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not you. Because you got to go talk to him about these obtrusive lights. Because that can be kind of, how do you talk to people about that? I mean,
Exactly.
So a lot of people don't understand light, or the pollution of the,
Right. The light pollution.
Light, yeah,
Right. Because
the
so many
term you
people
just
have it.
used.
Oh, light trespass.
Light trespass. It is a real thing.
Exactly. So we've got, light trespass, our energy waste, and then the other issue can be just our view of the sky, that we are blotting out our common view of the sky for everybody, where we all need to see that.
We all need that connection to the stars. We've written songs about it. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. The stars at night are big and bright in Texas. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just ubiquitous with our life.
Right. And psychologists and psychiatrists are saying that we really need that connection with nature. And part of that is seeing the stars and understanding our place in the universe.
And that's why we're so grateful, really, that we were able to be invited by Bamberger and Texas A&M Natural Resources Institute. They've done wonderful, wonderful video series. We found out about it just because we like to research conservation on the internet. And it's just a wonderful series. I think this is the 20th episode, but we're really proud to be a part of it. We
Absolutely.
would like to think that conservation of the night is about what this series is about.
Exactly. Conservation of the night. So we've touched on it a little bit, but let's talk specifically about how we solve these issues.
Let's do.
All right. We've shown some examples, but let's go through this list. These are called the 5 principles of responsible outdoor lighting. You can find them on our, yes, Philip has them up there. You can find them on our DarkSkyTexas.org website. You can find them on the DarkSky.org website, which is Dark Sky International. They're our parent company, so to speak, even though we're all nonprofit, but yeah, they're our parents. And so we know that for every light, we want to ask, is this light needed? Is it useful? What is it doing? Why is it here? Do we really need that light? Is there a person who's going to use that light? If no person is going to use that light and you don't have a use for it,
Probably don't need it.
get rid of it.
And the next one's targeted.
Exactly. So we've talked a little bit about that. Is the light shining where it's needed? And we've got some lights that are coming on here. I don't think we can get them quite in the
Good lights here at
viewpoint.
Bamberger Ranch.
Right, good lights here. They are targeted so that you can see the walkway, and that's what's needed. We can have the light we needed. We're not saying everybody's got to turn off all their lights.
Absolutely
No.
not. It's
We're
correct,
saying-
Cindy.
yeah.
That's a very important point. We're not telling anyone or trying to get people to turn off lights. We need some lights at night, period.
Well,
But it's
people do.
People do.
But if nobody's there, if no human is there, there's no point in it.
You're right.
There's
What's
no
the
point.
next one?
Well, low light levels.
Yes.
And
Don't need to go
no,
crazy with our lights.
actually, the way the human eye works and the way that our eyes have the, you know, the rods and cones in them, we actually see better at night outside if the light is lower level. Then we can see further. If it's very bright in one spot, our eyes adjust to that and we can see that spot, but we can't see beyond it.
Exactly.
Exactly. Now, one of the things that kind of covers shielded lights, and I'm going to jump back to our talking about security lights.
Sure.
Because we've got a great photo that can be added here that will talk about the fact that shows some spotlights in
The backyard.
in the backyard. All right, I want to talk a little bit about these pictures we've got that relate not only to us shielding a light, but also back to when people are concerned about security lights. So we've got this great picture of a backyard with spotlights on, and you think, whoa, it's all lit up, we can see well, we're safe, right?
Maybe not.
What happens then? We have the next picture where we shield the actual spotlights. We shield it from the view of the camera and our eye, and whoa, there's somebody standing just beyond the light.
That's amazing. You would never think that, but
Well, the thing of it is, if we look back at the first picture, they were there the whole time. We just couldn't see them because of the way our eyes work. We could not see them, so we were blinded by the light, so to speak. You know,
too much glaring light.
too much light. So we're talking about those low levels of light, being shielded, and low levels. We not only shield it, but reduce the amount of light, and you can see further and better. See further. So you love talking about the next one, controlled.
Well, control as far as motion sensors, detectors, so that the lights are not on unless there's somebody there that needs them. And now, every now and then, you know, we've got some motion detector lights, and every now and then we'll have a fox come through the yard, right? And Mr. Fox might turn that light on. I like to watch wildlife like you, like many of our viewers here. People that love Bamberger and NRI, but so it's great, because then you know there's an animal there maybe too.
Right, and a lot of the newer motion detectors, you can adjust them so that they will only detect something as large as a person.
She has the fancy motion detector lights. Mine do turn on for pretty much anything. which
Right,
is
so the newer
sometimes
ones,
bothersome.
yeah, the newer ones will you can adjust them so that they'll only, you know, detect something as large as a person, so that you don't have that problem.
That's a
But
good
you could
point.
also, you mentioned timing them,
Yep.
and you can also have a light that's on a switch, so that maybe you have a dog and you need to take them outside for a walk. Turn it on, go outside, you know, let them do their thing, go back inside, turn it off. Because if a person is not out there using it, you're wasting your money, you're wasting your energy, you are disrupting all the little wildlife that's on your trees and bushes and in your yard.
And that's a good point, Cindy. Think about how much, you at home think about how much money is wasted by lights being on that don't need to be on. In fact, there's about $3 billion per year
Right, with a B.
worth of energy lost to incorrect lighting or over lighting and things like that. It's very
In the United States
and
alone.
just in the U.S.
Right,
It's just a massive amount. And again, it's the easiest form of pollution to correct.
precisely. So the last thing that we've got in our 5 principles.
Oh, yes. Oh, the last one?
Uh-huh,
I thought we had already done number 5. Which one is it?
very bottom one.
Oh, the color. Yes, of course. So here we go. We talked about moths flying around and bugs at night when you have these bright glaring lights that are wasting energy and hurting your eyes and you can't see. This is the way to fix it. It's very simple. You can go to a lot of stores, you know, hardware
Exactly.
stores, Home Depot, and get
And get a
amber
bug
color
light.
Bug light. It's like an amber color almost.
Right, and the true amber is actually what they use in the national parks. But with a bug light, yes, it will still reduce your amount of melatonin you produce slightly, but you can use this not only on your porch, but you don't need to leave that porch light on if nobody's coming in anyway.
Right.
Turn it off. But if you need the porch light on, have something like this. Also, I personally, my husband and I, have these in our bedroom,
So
and one of the switches for a light in our bathroom has a bug light, so that if we get up in the night, we're not going to blind ourselves
Right.
and stop our
Stop that
production
melatonin.
of melatonin. We'll turn on a bug light.
Yeah,
And of
they're-
course, we always shade it inside too.
Well, they're
And
just
we should
wonderful.
shade it outside. I mean, think about that. I want to talk about shading just a second.
Sure.
I know we've already finished the
Yeah.
shading part, but if you have a lamp inside, say it's sitting on the end table by your sofa, well, you have a bare bulb sitting there. Who's going to do that? You're going to put a shade on it so that you get the illumination without the glare.
Yeah.
We should do that with all of our outdoor lights. We see these lights being put up all over the communities with these big globes, and they're pretty during the daytime. Eye candy, very nice during the daytime. But at night, they're disastrous. They do not help us see. In fact, they create lots of dark spaces.
Sure,
So I'll get
sure.
off my little soapbox
No,
on
I
that
know
one.
That's one of your favorite topics there. But now we do have something else important to talk about, right? You
We've
wanted to
got a couple of
discuss
things.
The dark sky
The
places?
dark sky places. There are 21 dark sky places that are international dark sky places designated by Dark Sky International in the state of Texas. Wow, think about that. 21, and we've got 10 more places at least that are working on getting the designation. It's not an easy thing to do, but they're working on it, and our Dark Sky Texas teams have been behind almost every one of those. In fact, if you go to darkskytexas.org, one of the banners on the first page says, hey, we're celebrating the 15 years of designating dark sky places in Texas. Then you can click on that and go to and look at every one of the places in Texas that's been designated, who worked on it, some information about it, and a photograph from it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It is, and I just wanted to mention now, there are several different levels or types of a dark sky place. Like
Right.
I think that we go out to the Devil's River and they're a sanctuary.
They are a sanctuary. We've got reserves. We've got the Monster International Reserve around Big
Big
Bend
Bend,
area. We've got
Communities, dark sky
communities. And now there's something called urban dark sky places, because there are parks in some of our urban areas where the community and the city usually can put up good lighting. As an example, can educate people about why to do the lighting that way. They don't have the beautiful skies because of everybody else around them, but they can start to educate everybody. So yeah, so we've got those dark sky places,
Yeah, in fact,
urban parks too.
there's from an economic standpoint, there's communities and towns like Horseshoe Bay, Texas. They were so happy to get their dark sky status because they're like, what's just going to bring money to town? Because
Right.
people want to bring their children or people.
Exactly.
They want to be in a place where they can actually see the stars because they live in Austin or Houston and it's too bright.
Right.
So it's becoming more of an ecotourism type economic.
Definitely. People want to go there. And you know who we forgot? The dark sky parks. And we have fabulous dark sky parks in Texas. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Department has worked towards having more and more dark sky parks. I
Sure.
know Dark Sky Texas teams worked with them to teach people, you know, like Friends of the Park and local astronomy groups and local master naturalist groups about how to do the inventory on lights, how to assess them, so that the parks could have that information and start to change their lighting so that they protected the view of the night sky just like they protect the rest of the property.
It's all part of conservation.
It is. Now, one of the things that Dark Sky Texas does, because, you know, our international group will designate these large
Yes.
groups, the communities, the parks, etc. One thing that Dark Sky Texas does is that we offer the Be a Star Award. And that goes to individual landowners, can be residences. We've got people who have
Businesses?
businesses,
Commercial
who,
businesses?
who have as little as a half an acre who's running. but we are getting ready to present that to Bamberger Ranch.
Oh, April Sansom.
Right,
Yes,
so
the
over
executive
5,000 acres, so a lot different than some of those little half-acre plots. Do you want to get the
Yes, and we make sure
award?
we get them a big sign.
Absolutely.
Go to their education center here. Oh yes, so many people can see it and learn more about it. But yes.
Absolutely. So you can apply for this award online at DarkSkyTexas.org, and it's a self-assessment of the property. You answer some questions and then determine what size sign you want and get it. So if April,
Hello, April. Thanks for joining
yes,
us.
so congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you
let's get
very
you
much.
in the middle here.
Thank you.
It's an honor.
And we'll get, not only, I'll let you hold it, we can get you not only with, on the video, but I'm sure we can get a still photo or two afterwards too.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. We encourage you to look at DarkSkyTexas.org. There is so much educational information there, including a full set of online learning that can be used for homeschoolers, or there are teachers that use it in their classroom. There are 2 levels, one aimed at about 4th or 5th grade and one at like 7th or 8th grade.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank
April.
you very much.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
for
us.
coming out to Bamberger Ranch Preserve. And I'm really pleased that you mentioned that people can apply for the Be a Star Award regardless of their property size.
Exactly.
Because here at Bamberger Ranch Preserve, we're very, we'd like to tell people that whether they're stewarding 50,000 acres, 5,000 acres, or a fifth of an acre,
Exactly.
that they can make a positive difference. And that is true in terms of dark skies as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every light counts.
You got it.
Yeah.
And again, thanks for having us. We really appreciate
We
it.
do
Well,
appreciate it.
thanks for coming out to Bamberger Ranch Preserve.
Oh,
And thanks
you're
to
welcome.
NRI. This has really been a wonderful partnership for us with the Texas A&M Natural Resources Institute. So
It's a great
thank
Fabulous.
you for being part of that.
You're welcome.